So we are back with another TBR video, and the only difference this time is it is October. Easily one of the greatest months out of the entire year, and that is simply because of Halloween. It is hands down the greatest holiday of all time. There is no arguing with it. Get out of here with your Christmas. Get out of here with your presents. Get out of here with your Santa Claus. Nothing can compare to Halloween. Now also in this TBR video, I will start it with a little mini section of like a September wrap up where I will talk about the books that I read in September that it didn't get dedicated videos. If it did get a dedicated video last month after I read it, I won't be talking about it here. That's a little bit redundant. I'm just going to touch on the ones that I didn't get to do a video on, and it'll be short and sweet. Then I will talk about the books that I'm going to read this month, then I'll talk about the manga that I'm going to read this month, and then I will finish it off with announcing the Patreon pick for the month of October. I will also have timestamps in the description below if you kind of want to jump around from there. So first things first, September wrap up. Out of all of the books that I read last month, only 2 of them I didn't actually make dedicated videos on, and those would be, I have them in the wrong order over here, Legion by William Peter Blatty, and that is the sequel to The Exorcist, and it was fine. It wasn't a bad book by any stretch of the imagination, but it didn't it's just not jumping off the shelf as one of the greatest things you've ever read. It's definitely not The Exorcist, but it's definitely not bad. You're following the detective from the first one, and he's now got this spree of serial killer crimes that he's kind of following, and it doesn't really even tip into the supernatural until way towards the end of the book, which is fine. It just was a very different experience from the first one. Not that that's a bad thing, but I would just say the first one was probably the stronger of not even probably, the first one was the stronger of the 2 books. Although I had a blast with this one, and it was a little bit shorter than the first one, which made it feel good. Like, it was nice and tight for what it was trying to do and what it was trying to be. And I think the shorter length of the book benefited it because it didn't feel bloated. It really felt like it knew where it wanted to be, knew what it wanted to do, and it did it. And I appreciated that. And then, of course, I read Speaking Bones. And Speaking Bones is book 4 in the Dandelion Dynasty. And this is just the greatest series I have read in a long time. Like, I was leapfrogging this series and the Game of Thrones series, and I think I said it in the last video. This is the one, man. This just crushes Game of Thrones into the dust. No, not really. I mean, a Game of Thrones, I think most of those books came in at 8s and 9s, which is great. I mean, really high scores on those books. But this is just better. This is the series, man. This has so much better than it has any right to be, and it just blows my mind. This is a 1050 page book, and I tore through it. I finished this like 2.5 days ahead of schedule, because once you hit about the 30% mark, you cannot stop. There was last Saturday, just this last weekend, it was like 9:30 at night, and I had to force myself to put the book down. I was just like, this is insane. I need to stop. Like, it was ridiculous. And crazy how good this book is. The series, not even this book, the series. If you have not read this, I should probably make a dedicated video, at least talking about the series. I know they do so badly on my channel. They just get really, 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 really bad view counts, but they're so good. Go read it if you haven't. I can't stress the Dandelion Dynasty enough. Maybe I'll just make a video about Ken Liu and how fabulous he is, because he literally got a shelf. Can you see it? A whole shelf for that author and everything he's ever written, because he's just the greatest thing the greatest new author that I've seen come out in like the past decade. Just hands down, it's Ken Liu. Like, I did that top 10 greatest authors list, and I put him on it, and somebody put in the comments, "Oh, this is a really good list, except I'd replace that Ken Liu guy." You clearly haven't read him, because I probably didn't put him high enough on the list. I'll say that right now. Anyway, so that's everything that oh no, that's not true. I did I finished that Speaking Bones so quickly that I had to, 2 days left in the month, and I was like, what the hell am I going to read? Yeah, because I didn't want to start the October TBR early. So I went ahead and I slipped in The Lesser Devil, which is like a 150-page little novella by Christopher Rocchio, because last month I read Empire of Silence, and I'm going to move into Howling Dark, so I'm going to have to fit this in somewhere. So I went ahead and slipped it in on the last couple days of the month, just because Speaking Bones, I couldn't stop, because I can't to help myself when it comes to that series. It's insane. Truly insane. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's move on to what we're reading this month, because this is going to be a pretty big month, I think, for me anyway. I'm really excited about it, and I think I said that in the last video, but it doesn't matter because I'm really excited about this month. And we're going to open it up with The Great and Secret Show by Clive Barker. I love Clive Barker's writing. When I went into Clive Barker, I don't know what I expected, but his prose and his writing style was not it. I started reading, and I thought, oh my God, like he has just an ability with words and sentence structure. His writing is wonderful. And I don't know what I think I expected something a little bit more brutal, and it is not. It is just almost flowery in the way that he describes some of his stuff. I don't know. Really good stuff. But I've already knocked out Hellraiser, or The Hellbound Heart, and I've also knocked out The Damnation Game. Those are the only 2 books I've ever read by him. So I'm moving on to The Great and Secret Show. There was no real grand vetting process. I kind of looked at the ones I have on the shelf back here, and that's the one that sounded the best fit for October. I was going to move into Weave World as my next book by him, but it didn't sound October enough. So Great and Secret Show won out. I guess Books of Blood would have been probably the best for an October read, but I don't have that one. So The Great and Secret Show it is. Next up, after I finish that, I will be moving directly into Howling Dark, which is, of course, the second book in the Sun Eater series, and following that, Lesser Devil. I was actually just going to mix the Lesser Devil in with this one and read it as though it was one book, but because I ended up with a little bit of extra time last month, I was able to knock that out. So I will be able to focus on this and only this, and I'm pretty excited to get into this because the first book was really, really good. I don't know if I would call it great territory, but the way that it went and from where it started to where it ended, I feel like if he can continue the trajectory that he set up for himself in that first book, I can see the series as a whole very quickly making its way into great territory, if that makes any sense. I wouldn't say it's great yet, but boy, he's on the path to greatness. All he needs to do is not falter, I guess is what I'm saying. So I'm pretty excited to see where it goes. Following that, this is maybe my most anticipated read for the entire month period, and that is The House of Leaves. I have had this for a very long time, and I've wanted to read this for a very long time. It's just such a big, daunting task, and it's such a big puzzle of a book. I just keep putting it off. I read the prologue for this when I was on vacation in 2022. Like literally 2.5 years ago, I read the prologue to this. I read this, what was I reading at the time? Clara and the Sun and Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami. I took this and Kafka on the Shore on vacation with me, and I ended up buying Clara and the Sun while I was on vacation and read that one instead of this one. But that doesn't matter. I'm finally getting to it. I'm finally going to read it. I'm finally going to do House of Leaves. I am super excited. Instead of trying to slot it in between 2 of the books, I might just kind of peck away at it like an hour or 2 every single night, just to kind of slowly work my way through it and kind of slowly piece it together. Although I don't know if it's as complicated. I don't know. We'll just have to see. We will see if it's as complicated as it appears or if it's just a gimmick. I don't know, but I'll talk about that one. I know I want to make a video on that. That's for sure. And last but not least, and maybe the most anticipated, at least for some of my viewers this month, will be Gardens of the Moon by Stephen Erickson, and this is book 1 in whatever you call the Malazan series. It is, what is it called? Book of the Fallen. And this is another one. We'll see if this is as completely ridiculously daunting as everybody says it is. And obviously you don't expect that video to come in the month of October because that'll be the last book I read. I'll probably be finishing it up on like Halloween. So, or they're real close to that, because if I'm doing this and House of Leaves in the same month, it'll probably be pretty daunting to get through both of those. If that slips into November, oh well, so be it. Shit happens, right? But yeah, no, I'm pretty excited to get to this one. At least try it. If I bounce off of it, I bounce off of it. But I would at least like to see what all the fuss is about when it comes to Malazan. Next, we're going to talk about manga. And of course, every year for the past 3 years, well, this will be my 3rd year running of doing a Halloween special for manga. And every year, that Halloween special is Junji Ito. And this would be my number 1 recommendation from Junji Ito, at least ever since I did Uzumaki, and that is Tomi. And I was actually going to do this last year, but I got really close to my deadline and I hadn't even started reading anything, and this was just a little bit too much for me. It was a little too big. So I went with Gyo instead. And well, that video's up if you want to watch it. It was something else. It was no Uzumaki. It was Gyo. But no, this year we're doing the Tomi, and I'm pretty excited about this one too, because I just really like Junji Ito. This will be my 4th thing that I've read by him, yes, because I also did the No Longer Human this year, and that's fabulous too. And I'm super duper extra hyped now because I just watched Uzumaki, the first episode of the anime, this morning when I woke up, because I forgot about it. I didn't get to watch it last night. I was so sad. I was going to watch it on like the night that it premiered, and I had to watch it the next day. Oh, broke my heart. But yes, Tomi will be the manga that I read. And yeah, that Uzumaki was, oh God, that was so good. Anyway, and then of course, last but not least is the Patreon pick for the month of October. And I'll just kind of have to squeeze this one in somewhere. I don't even know where I'll read it. And that would be Gone to See the Riverman by Christopher Triana. And I don't actually have a copy of this to hold up. I haven't got it yet. I'll probably just have to order it online. But this is, I don't even know what this is. It is a short book. It is extreme horror, as described to me by the patron who selected it for me this month, which was Greymalk. And we'll just have to see. He actually asked me, I think it was in the live stream, if I've ever watched or read extreme horror before. And I was like, no, I've watched it in movies, but I've never read it. And he immediately made sure it was his suggestion, or at least, you know, an example of that was his suggestion for this month. And then that ended up being the actual pick for the month. So what was it called? Gone to See the Riverman. And we'll just have to see how this goes, because this is a whole thing that I have not done before. I mean, I've read horror, but I don't know about extreme horror. Let's find out. Yep. And then if everything goes well, I will try to line up the big heavy-hitting horror ones like House of Leaves and Gone to See the Riverman and Tomi. Those 3. I'm really going to try and line those up for Halloween, so it'll be like all within like 3 or 4 days of each other, just like bam, bam, bam. The week of Halloween should be pretty banging as far as horror book reviews goes. Fingers crossed I can pull it off. I might pull one to the week before if it's too much for me, but I'm really going to try to make that happen. Anyway, everybody, as always, the link for my Patreon's in the description below. The link for my Discord's in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.